Questions about fame, about authenticity, and about how far someone will go to look like the person the world expects them to be. And before this video ends, those questions might make you rethink everything you've believed about her, and maybe about yourself, too. Because what came out of that Beverly Hills clinic didn't just threaten a reputation. It shook an entire narrative built on control, charm, and a curated sense of perfection. But let's rewind. The world first met Meghan as an actress. She was sharp, magnetic, confident, a woman who knew how to command the camera. Yet even then, whispers circulated. Casting directors in Los Angeles remembered her as the girl who changed her look every 6 months. Colleagues mentioned she'd show up looking subtly different, nose slimmer, cheekbones higher, smile somehow brighter. Was it evolution, good lighting, or something else entirely? Nobody cared enough to find out. Until now. The surgeon who allegedly worked on Meghan wasn't some back-alley doctor. He was a name that floated quietly among Hollywood's elite. A craftsman of beauty, known for discretion so tight even A-listers didn't flinch when signing his NDAs. But something changed. Sources claim he's since retired, no longer bound by the same web of obligations that once tied his tongue. And somewhere along the line, he started talking. Not for money, but for what he called the truth. It started as a rumor. An offhand comment made at a medical conference, overheard by a journalist. "You'd be shocked if you saw her without the work," he'd allegedly said. Within days, those words spread like wildfire through private chat groups, PR circles, and gossip boards. Then came the drop. A handful of images uploaded to an encrypted cloud, traced to an IP that led back to Los Angeles. Blurry at first, but then sharpened through forensic filters. No makeup, no retouching, no filters, just her. And here's where things take a darker turn. When Meghan's team caught wind of what was happening, panic allegedly erupted inside her Montecito mansion. Sources say phones were buzzing nonstop. Her lawyers reached out to major media outlets, threatening litigation. Publicists scrambled to control the narrative. But the internet had already moved faster than any royal crisis team ever could. Copies of those photos had begun circulating among closed groups. Some claim they were never meant for the public. Others believe this was a calculated leak designed to humiliate. Pause and think about that for a second. A woman who's built her entire brand on independence and control, now losing control over the one thing she guarded most fiercely, her image. But why now? Why would a man who swore to keep her secrets suddenly break? The timing feels almost surgical in itself. Her public favor is slipping, her Hollywood deals are faltering, and rumors of tension within her marriage keep resurfacing. Then, boom. A visual scandal hits. A surgeon's revenge, or something far more orchestrated. We live in an age where beauty is currency and authenticity is an illusion. People don't want real, they want believable. Meghan understood that better than anyone. She crafted her story with precision. The underdog who became a duchess, the outsider who married into power, the victim who found her voice. But what if that same precision extended beyond storytelling, to her face, her body, her very identity? Online forums began dissecting every old photo, comparing angles, lighting, bone structure. Look at the bridge of the nose. Her jawline used to be softer. Her freckles moved. Every detail became evidence, every imperfection a clue. It wasn't just gossip, it was digital forensics. Experts weighed in, some dismissing it as lighting tricks, others calling it definitive proof of surgical intervention. Still, the real bombshell wasn't in the speculation. It was in the supposed confirmation, the words of the man behind the scalpel. But before we dive into his confession, we need to understand how beauty, fame, and deception coexist in Hollywood's secret corridors. Meghan isn't the first star to reshape herself for the spotlight, but she might be the first royal whose entire public identity depends on denying it. After all, a duchess must embody grace, not vanity. The palace can survive scandals, but not ones that reveal artifice beneath aristocracy. So when her alleged surgeon began talking about procedures done long before she met Harry, the story took on a new life. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about plastic surgery. It was about power. The power to rewrite one's past, literally and figuratively. What makes this tale even more fascinating and unsettling is how Meghan's fans reacted. Some defended her fiercely. Every woman has the right to feel confident. Others turned on her completely. She sold us authenticity, and now we see it was manufactured. The divide grew louder, more toxic, more personal. In a culture obsessed with self-image, Meghan's crisis became a mirror reflecting everyone's hidden insecurities. Behind closed doors, insiders whispered of total chaos. Staffers allegedly ordered to scrub old photos from fan archives. Digital cleanup teams hired to flood search engines with newer, polished images. Even AI-generated portraits began appearing, blurring the lines between real and edited. If true, that means this wasn't just damage control. It was digital warfare over beauty itself. Can you imagine living that way? Knowing every camera flash, every screenshot, every frame of video could expose something you've tried to bury for years? That fear of being seen, truly seen, is what sources say sent Meghan spiraling when she first saw the leaks. She didn't just see imperfections. She saw the unraveling of control, and control has always been her currency. One insider, who allegedly worked close to her team during the height of the crisis, described the moment like this. It wasn't about how she looked. It was about who she was. Those pictures didn't just strip her face. They stripped the story she built. That's the part the public often misses. It's not the surgery that ruins someone. It's the exposure. The admission that the fairy tale was edited, that the crown was airbrushed, that the Duchess was, at her core, human. Now imagine the surgeon's perspective. Sitting in his home office, decades of celebrity faces flashing through his memory, each one a carefully sculpted secret. Why speak now? Was it guilt? Was it principle? Or was it pressure from someone else? Because there's one thing even the surgeon couldn't deny. His timing was impeccable. Almost too impeccable. Reports claimed that before the leak, there were quiet inquiries made by investigative journalists chasing a different story entirely. A Netflix insider scandal, not a plastic surgery one. But somehow, their trail led back to medical records. Coincidence? Or convenient deflection? Meanwhile, Meghan's inner circle reportedly split in two. Some urged her to face it head-on, to issue a statement embracing imperfection. Others warned that doing so would destroy what little credibility she had left in Hollywood. For a woman whose every public moment is choreographed, silence became both weapon and shield. And in that silence, the narrative grew louder than ever. This is where things get truly cinematic. Because according to insiders, there wasn't just one set of photos. There were several, each allegedly showing different stages of transformation spanning years. And if those photos are real, then they don't just tell a story of cosmetic enhancement. They tell a story of obsession, of a woman who believed reinvention wasn't optional. It was survival. The deeper you go, the less this feels like a scandal and the more it feels like a tragedy. The price of perfection is heavy, and in Meghan's case, that price might be her peace of mind. Still, the question lingers. Why would the surgeon take such a risk? Breaking confidentiality is professional suicide. Unless, of course, he believed something larger was at stake. Some claim he was pressured. Others whisper he was betrayed first. A financial dispute, perhaps, or a promise broken. The truth remains murky, and that's exactly why it captivates millions. And just when you think you've heard the worst of it, there's another twist. Because this isn't just a story about leaked photos. It's about what came next. The confrontation, the accusations, the alleged recordings, the fallout that didn't just damage a reputation. It shattered a kingdom of illusion built on flawless lighting and Photoshop perfection. They say truth always finds its way to the surface, no matter how deep you bury it under PR spin and airbrushed imagery. For Meghan Markle, that truth came crawling out of a locked Beverly Hills file cabinet, one that should have stayed sealed forever. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Because tucked away in a high-rise medical building overlooking Los Angeles, behind frosted glass doors and designer art, was a man who held more secrets than most people could imagine. His name was whispered only among the wealthy, the famous, and the desperate, those who wanted to look reborn without anyone ever knowing they'd been remade. And somewhere in his meticulously organized filing cabinet sat a folder marked with two words that would soon set the internet ablaze: Meghan Markle. It wasn't supposed to exist anymore. Or at least, that's what the paperwork said. Confidential records were meant to be destroyed after a decade, particularly for high-profile clients. But this folder, this slim, discreet binder, somehow survived the shredder. Inside were forms, signatures, photos taken before and after procedures, and handwritten notes detailing subtle adjustments. Notes that, in the wrong hands, could unravel a brand built on natural grace and royal composure. So the question is, how did that folder resurface? One theory points to a routine audit gone wrong. The clinic, once run by the discreet and well-respected Dr. Adrian Keene, had recently been sold. New management, new systems, new compliance checks. And during one of those checks, a digital backup was reportedly rediscovered, a database containing years of patient information. Some of it incomplete, some encrypted, but one particular entry stood out. A patient listed under an alias that matched no insurance record but carried a photo recognizable to anyone with an internet connection. Meghan Markle, or rather, the woman who would later become her. It's easy to imagine the moment Dr. Keene's assistant stumbled across it. The sharp intake of breath, the nervous glance over the shoulder, the sudden realization of what they were looking at. But what happened next? That's where it gets murky. According to insiders, Keene didn't intend for the information to leak. He was known for his silence, for turning down interviews, for refusing to gossip even about those who practically begged him to brag. But there's a difference between choosing silence and having it forced on you. And when a journalist came knocking, holding documents suggesting the folder's existence, Keene was faced with a decision. Stay quiet and let others twist the story, or speak up and tell his version, one that might protect him, even if it destroyed her. He chose to talk. In a private conversation, reportedly off the record, Keene hinted at what was inside. He didn't name her directly, but his phrasing left no doubt. Some clients, he said, are works of art, but art fades when the truth bleeds through. Those words were enough to spark an investigation that spread faster than any PR team could contain. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know what the surgeon had seen and why he decided to speak now. But here's the real twist. The folder wasn't just about vanity procedures. It contained something far more intimate: psychological notes, quotes from consultations, mentions of deep insecurity about appearance and public perception. It wasn't just a record of surgery, it was a diary of self-doubt. And that's what made it so dangerous. Imagine reading words written years before fame. Confessions of fear, of wanting to be seen, of wanting to be perfect. "I'm tired of being told I'm not enough," one entry allegedly read. "I want to look like the person I know I can be." Those weren't the words of a villain. They were the words of someone haunted by rejection, desperate to rewrite how the world saw her. But when the media got hold of fragments of those notes, they didn't see pain. They saw an opportunity. The headlines came fast and cruel. Unfiltered Meghan exposed. Royal beauty's secret past. Doctor breaks his silence. And with every headline, the internet's appetite for scandal grew hungrier. Still, the question remained: who actually leaked the contents of that folder? Because if it wasn't Dr. Keene himself, then someone had gone behind his back, someone with access, motivation, and a taste for chaos. The timing couldn't have been worse for Meghan. Her public image had already been wobbling. Netflix negotiations stalled, podcast projects quietly shelved, and whispers of tension between her and Harry creeping back into tabloids. Then, out of nowhere, the narrative shifted from empowerment to exposure overnight. One former employee of the clinic claimed that the leak wasn't accidental at all. Someone wanted her embarrassed, they said. This wasn't just about gossip, it was a message. But a message from whom? Some pointed to rival PR teams in Hollywood, women who had once been her friends and now saw her as competition. Others speculated it came from within royal circles, still bitter about her departure from the monarchy and eager to tarnish what remained of her influence. But one insider suggested something even more shocking: that the leak originated from within Meghan's own camp. You heard that right. A theory began circulating that someone close to her had either lost control of the files or deliberately leaked them to preempt a larger scandal. A strategic sacrifice. Leak something small to hide something bigger. If that's true, then the folder wasn't the story, it was the smokescreen. And this is where the emotional weight of the situation starts to sink in. Behind the glamorous exterior, behind the PR-perfect smiles, there's a human being who's suddenly realizing that every version of her, the actress, the Duchess, the activist, has become public property. Stripped of control, she's watching her image being dissected by strangers who never knew her and never cared to. But still, there's a strange irony in all of this, isn't there? The woman who once spoke about breaking free from royal secrecy now finds herself the victim of her own exposed secrets. The woman who told millions to be authentic, now accused of living behind filters. The woman who demanded privacy is now the centerpiece of a spectacle she cannot stop. And somewhere, in a quiet office in Beverly Hills, Dr. Keene sits in front of a computer screen, reading the fallout his actions unleashed. Does he feel regret? Vindication? Relief? No one knows. What we do know is that within days of the story breaking, his medical license was reportedly suspended pending investigation for breaching confidentiality. Yet even as his career crumbled, he didn't deny what he'd said. In fact, he hinted there was more. There are things people don't understand, he told one outlet cryptically. It's not just about beauty. It's about identity. Some people don't know who they really are until they lose control of their reflection. Those words hit differently, don't they? Because they suggest that beneath the scandal, there's something deeper, a story about someone who became trapped in their own reflection, unable to separate performance from person. And when that reflection cracked, the truth didn't just escape, it screamed. For Meghan, the fallout was immediate. Her team denied the authenticity of the photos. Statements were drafted and retracted. Legal letters were sent to journalists. Friends were told not to comment. But silence only fueled speculation. The less she said, the louder the world became. And then came the online detectives. They pulled up old footage, old interviews, stills from suits, paparazzi shots from red carpets. Frame by frame, they began comparing details. Look at the nose here. Notice the chin here. See how the eyelids changed. It was obsessive, cruel. And yet it worked. The narrative solidified. Meghan's beauty, the one she flaunted as effortless, was now a symbol of deceit. The irony? Even if the photos were genuine, even if every claim were true, she wasn't alone. Hollywood runs on reinvention. Stars reshape their faces like they change stylists. The only difference is, most don't preach about being real. Meghan did. And that contradiction is what turned a minor scandal into a cultural explosion. Now here's the most unsettling part. The surgeon's folder wasn't the only record. There were digital backups, cloud accounts, old correspondences, notes between Meghan's representatives and the clinic regarding NDAs, confidentiality renewals, and even requests to destroy originals. Those emails, if real, prove that Meghan was aware of what she was hiding and wanted to bury it. But in trying to erase her past, she only made it more intriguing. Because when people sense you're hiding something, they'll dig until they find it. And when they do, they'll make sure the entire world sees. As for Dr. Keene, the whispers around him grew louder. Some said he'd been bribed by tabloids. Others insisted he was forced by unseen hands to come forward. But there's another theory, one that flips the story entirely. What if he didn't leak anything at all? What if someone else inside the clinic, a technician, a former employee, even a rival surgeon, framed him to take the fall? If that's true, then Meghan's panic may have been misplaced. Her rage, her fury, her sleepless nights, all directed at the wrong person. And the real leaker? Still out there, watching the chaos they created unfold in perfect silence. Let that sink in. A secret folder. A woman fighting to control her image. A surgeon caught between loyalty and exposure. And a hidden hand orchestrating it all, unseen, untouched, but everywhere. No longer belonged to you. That every line, every shadow, every imperfection was now public property? That's exactly what Meghan Markle faced the day the leaked images hit the internet. But it wasn't the pictures themselves that terrified her. It was what came next. Because behind those static photos lurked something far more dangerous, moving images. Real, living proof that could destroy the carefully constructed illusion forever. The leaked videos. They began as whispers in online forums. Grainy, low-resolution clips that users claimed came from medical documentation, allegedly filmed during consultations and recovery stages. At first, people dismissed them as deep fakes, another cruel internet trick. But then, forensic analysts noticed something unusual, subtle reflections in the mirror, timestamps consistent with dates tied to other confirmed events, and voices faintly audible in the background. One of those voices, experts claimed, matched Meghan's tone and cadence perfectly. Can you imagine the panic? When Meghan's lawyers first received word that the videos might exist, the atmosphere reportedly turned electric inside her Montecito mansion. The blinds were drawn, phones confiscated. PR advisors huddled in emergency calls that stretched into dawn. Every conversation revolved around one question: how much was out there? Because this time, there was no denying it. Photos can be denied. Lighting can be blamed. Angles can be dismissed. But video? That's another beast entirely. The first video clip allegedly showed Meghan seated under harsh fluorescent lighting, no makeup, her hair pulled back. She wasn't smiling. She looked vulnerable, nervous, human. A doctor's voice could be heard explaining a procedure: technical, professional, clinical. For most, it would be mundane. For someone like Meghan, it was catastrophic. Because for years, her brand had rested on the image of effortless beauty. The Duchess who didn't need Hollywood artifice. The woman who transcended the system rather than participated in it. And now, here she was, caught in a sterile room, looking painfully ordinary. You could almost hear the collective gasp across social media. But what made the situation worse was the timing of the release. Just days before, Meghan had made an appearance at a humanitarian gala, speaking passionately about self-worth and authenticity. "We must embrace who we are," she had said, flaws and all. Now, those same words were being replayed over footage that allegedly showed her doing the exact opposite, concealing her flaws, perfecting her face, rewriting her reflection. The irony was brutal. And the internet has no mercy for irony. Within hours, hashtags like #Unfiltered Meghan and #Duchess Deception trended worldwide. Influencers began posting reaction videos. Late-night hosts joked about the Duchess disappearing freckles. Every frame, every screenshot, every pixel was dissected like a crime scene. But what no one knew then, not even Meghan's closest allies, was that the videos were just the beginning of a much darker chain reaction. Because soon after the leaks, Dr. Adrian Keene, the Beverly Hills surgeon at the center of the storm, vanished from public view. His clinic closed overnight. His website wiped clean, and whispers began circulating that someone had paid him to disappear. Why would a respected surgeon vanish at the exact moment his most controversial patient was under fire? Coincidence or cleanup? Theories spread like wildfire. Some said Meghan's team paid him off to keep quiet. Others believed he fled after realizing how deep the exposure went. But then, a reporter uncovered something chilling. Keene's encrypted medical backup, the same database that allegedly contained Meghan's files, had been accessed remotely just 24 hours before his disappearance. The digital signature? An IP address traced not to Los Angeles, but to London. Now the story wasn't just about leaked videos. It was about espionage, blackmail, and transatlantic secrets that tied Hollywood vanity to royal politics. And yet, through all this, Meghan remained silent. Publicly serene, privately unraveling. Her friends claimed she barely slept. Her husband, Harry, was said to be furious, not at her, but at whoever had broken their circle of trust. "This is character assassination," he allegedly told a confidant. But even he couldn't deny the images looked real. Behind the palace walls, reactions were equally tense. Some insiders quietly rejoiced, another blow to a woman they viewed as an embarrassment to the crown. Others feared that the scandal's fallout might reach royal corridors. After all, if confidential information could be stolen from a Beverly Hills clinic, what else could leak? What conversations, what letters, what private footage might already be floating in the shadows? And that's when the real paranoia began. Meghan's team hired digital forensics experts to hunt down the source. What they found was even more disturbing. The videos weren't circulating randomly. They were being distributed in a pattern, strategically, methodically, through accounts linked to overseas servers. Someone wasn't just leaking, they were orchestrating. Every new upload dropped just as public interest began to fade. Each clip reignited outrage, fueling endless speculation. It wasn't just scandal anymore. It was psychological warfare. But here's where things take a strange twist. One of the leaked videos didn't fit the rest. It wasn't medical footage. It wasn't clinical. It appeared to be filmed inside a home, a softly lit room, blurred background, a mirror reflecting someone adjusting makeup. The woman in the frame looked like Meghan, but older, more tired. She whispered something under her breath, before the camera cut off. For days, social media obsessed over what she said. Lip readers claimed it was, "They'll never see the real me again." If that video is real, then it wasn't leaked by accident. It was a confession, a private moment never meant for anyone's eyes. And the fact that it surfaced amid all this chaos suggests one thing. Someone close to Meghan had access not just to her secrets, but to her personal life. Someone betrayed her. And betrayal, when it comes from within, cuts deeper than any surgeon's scalpel ever could. In the following days, Meghan's team scrambled to regain control. Legal letters were sent globally. Tabloids received cease and desist warnings. YouTube channels were flagged for defamation. But the internet doesn't obey lawyers, it obeys curiosity. The harder she tried to erase the videos, the more viral they became. It's a cruel paradox, isn't it? The very act of suppression becomes proof of guilt. And Meghan's silence, once seen as composure, now looked like fear. Meanwhile, Dr. Keen's name reappeared in whispers across medical forums. A nurse who once worked with him hinted online that he'd kept something important as leverage. What kind of leverage? No one knew for sure, but insiders believed it was documentation of conversations that could clear his name or condemn hers. Think about that. A man vanishes, but his insurance policy might still be out there, encrypted, waiting. And if someone else got their hands on it, they'd hold the power to shape the narrative however they pleased. The story turned from scandal to mystery. Who truly controlled the leaks? Who benefited from Meghan's downfall? Was it a bitter ex-associate? A jealous rival? A royal operative aiming to silence her influence once and for all? Every theory made sense, and none of them did. And then, just as public attention started to wane, a major entertainment outlet dropped another bombshell. They had obtained an interview, an audio recording allegedly featuring Dr. Keen's voice. In the clip, a man identified as Keen says calmly, "The world thinks beauty is real. It's not. It's manufactured, maintained, and sold." She was no different, except she believed her own marketing. Those words echoed through headlines like gunfire. It wasn't just a betrayal anymore, it was philosophical. The doctor wasn't mocking her. He was exposing an industry built on hypocrisy, one that punished women for the same artifice it demanded from them. But the damage was done. Sponsors quietly distanced themselves. A luxury brand postponed a partnership announcement. Talk shows canceled planned segments. Meghan's upcoming projects entered creative hold. She had become too controversial, too radioactive, too unpredictable. And somewhere, someone was still leaking. Every few days, new screenshots, blurred stills, or voice notes appeared online, each one a fragment of the larger puzzle. And each one felt more deliberate than the last, like chapters of a story being released on schedule. Which leads to the chilling question, what if this was never about her appearance at all? What if the plastic surgery scandal was just the first layer of a much bigger revelation, one designed to distract from something truly damaging? Because insiders close to Meghan's circle began whispering that the real reason behind the leaks wasn't revenge. It was control. Someone wanted to remind her, and perhaps the entire royal machine, that no one is untouchable. Every empire, after all, begins to crumble from the inside. By the time the third video dropped, showing what appeared to be Meghan leaving the clinic with her face partially obscured, the world had already made up its mind. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict long before any official investigation began. But behind closed doors, there was one man who knew the full story. The man who created, protected, and then lost control of that secret folder. The man now living in shadows. And as one investigative journalist tracked him across state lines, she discovered something in his personal files, something that didn't just involve Meghan Markle. It involved other names, other faces, other secrets. Because the folder marked MM wasn't the only one he kept. And when those other folders come to light, the entire industry, not just Meghan, might never look the same again. But before those names surfaced, one more revelation about Meghan would push the story beyond the point of no return. Something hidden not in photos, not in videos, but in her own words, preserved in a recording that was never meant to be heard. And when that recording leaked, it wouldn't just destroy trust. It would expose everything. Imagine living a life where every mirror lies to you. Not because you can't see clearly, but because the reflection staring back isn't entirely yours anymore. That's where Meghan found herself after the videos. But the nightmare wasn't over. Because just when she thought she had seen the worst, something else surfaced, something no one expected, a recording. A conversation captured years before, buried deep in the archives of a clinic that should have been silent forever. And that recording would change everything. It began with a single message sent anonymously to a journalist known for her investigative work in Hollywood scandals. The email's subject line read, "She talked about the surgery herself." The attachment was a short audio file, only 42 seconds long. But those 42 seconds set fire to everything left standing of Meghan's credibility. The clip opened with the faint hum of fluorescent lights and the scratch of paper against a clipboard. Then a voice, soft, familiar, unmistakable, spoke nervously. "I don't want to look like me anymore," it said. "I want to look like someone the camera doesn't criticize." Another voice, male, calm, reassuring, replied, "We can soften the angles, redefine the structure. You'll still be you." Then a pause. And finally, the woman's voice again, quieter this time, almost trembling. "That's the problem. Being me doesn't work." For days, the clip was debated, analyzed, dissected. Was it really her voice? Audio engineers said yes. Body language experts, even from afar, noted the cadence, the phrasing. It matched her speech patterns perfectly. And when the journalist released the transcript, chaos followed. Because it wasn't just a leak anymore. It was a confession caught on tape. For Meghan, that was the final blow. Her team scrambled to issue denials, claiming the recording was fabricated from deepfake technology. But the public wasn't convinced. The tone was too human, too raw. The words too personal to be scripted. People began asking a different question now. Not whether Meghan was lying about surgery, but whether she had ever been truthful about anything at all. The irony was suffocating. Years of speeches about authenticity, interviews about being real, documentaries about living honestly, all now weaponized against her. The internet turned crueler by the hour. Every time she had told the world to love themselves as they are, someone reposted the clip of her saying, "Being me doesn't work." It became a meme, a soundbite, a symbol of hypocrisy. And somewhere in the middle of this digital storm, the one man who could confirm or deny everything remained missing. Dr. Adrian Keene. Investigators tried to track him. His house in Beverly Hills was empty. His neighbors said he left suddenly, taking only a small suitcase and a flash drive. The clinic's new owners refused to comment. One of his former nurses hinted online that he'd been warned to stay quiet. But warned by whom? The theories were endless. Meghan's lawyers, royal insiders, or maybe even someone higher up the entertainment chain who feared their own secrets might be next. Meanwhile, the journalist who broke the story received a second email. No name, no greeting, just a single sentence. "You've only heard the first recording. There are more." That's when fear turned into obsession. The journalist, known for her persistence, began tracing the digital trail. It led to a burner server in Switzerland, one frequently used by whistleblowers and private intelligence operatives. Whoever was leaking this material wasn't an amateur. They knew how to cover their tracks, how to manipulate timing, how to drop information just when interest began to fade. The pattern was deliberate, mathematical, almost artistic. But why Meghan? Why now? The journalist's sources pointed her towards something extraordinary, a list of names found in the same digital archive that contained Meghan's folder. Names of other clients. Politicians, influencers, royals. People whose images had been just as carefully curated as hers. It wasn't just about beauty anymore. It was about control. If these files were real, then this wasn't a leak. It was a takedown. A systematic dismantling of a facade that stretched far beyond one woman. As days passed, Meghan's emotional state reportedly deteriorated. Staff members spoke of late-night pacing, obsessive phone calls, and outbursts of anger followed by eerie silence. She wasn't just afraid of public embarrassment anymore. She was terrified of what else might surface. Because if there were more recordings, there might also be footage. And if that footage proved she lied about her past, the consequences could be permanent. And here's where the story takes another chilling turn. One of Meghan's former assistants, who had left her employment years ago under amicable conditions, suddenly reappeared online, tweeting a cryptic message. "Truth doesn't need a filter. It just needs courage." Within minutes, her account was deleted. But screenshots spread everywhere. People began wondering, was she connected to the leaks? Did she know something no one else did? Every move Meghan made became a headline. Paparazzi captured her looking distraught during what was supposed to be a private outing. Tabloids ran side-by-side comparisons, her unfiltered face versus her public appearances. But beyond the sensationalism, something more human was emerging. For the first time, the world saw not a duchess, not a celebrity, but a woman cornered by her own narrative, and no one knew how far she would go to defend it. Still, the public's fascination was unrelenting. Every viewer wanted to know, what was on the other recordings, and when would they surface? Then came the final spark that reignited the fire, a mysterious online account claiming to be Dr. A. Keane. The account began posting cryptic statements late at night, referencing promises broken and lies buried under royalty. Screenshots spread across forums. Was it really him? Or someone impersonating him to escalate the chaos? Either way, the damage was irreversible. Every new message sent Meghan's team into deeper panic. Lawyers issued takedowns. PR strategists pushed for sympathy interviews. There was even talk of a tell-all documentary to reclaim her truth. But here's the problem with truth. Once it escapes, you can't edit it. You can't control where it goes, how it's interpreted, or who decides to believe it. In the court of public opinion, perception is conviction. But beneath all the noise, one thread tied everything together: money. A payment trail traced from an anonymous donor to the journalist who received the recordings. Another payment from the same account to a data broker specializing in encrypted file transfers. Follow the money, they say, and you'll find the truth. But in this case, the money led somewhere even more unexpected, to a trust fund registered under a name linked to one of Meghan's oldest acquaintances, a woman she had once called her sister-like friend. So was this betrayal personal? Revenge disguised as justice? Or something larger? An orchestrated move to destroy not just Meghan but the entire illusion of royal glamour? Whatever the motive, the consequences were devastating. Sponsors fled. Former allies stayed silent. Even her husband, Prince Harry, reportedly urged her to step back from the spotlight until things cooled down. But for Meghan, stepping back was no longer an option. Once your name becomes a headline, there's no retreat, only reaction. And yet, amid the storm, one final twist emerged that no one saw coming. The journalist who first received the anonymous emails suddenly disappeared from public view. Her social media wiped. Her phone disconnected. Colleagues claimed she'd gone on temporary leave, but no one could confirm where she was. Then, a week later, a message appeared on her official channel. It contained a single image, a screenshot of a digital folder. The title, Royal Reconstruction Files. And beneath it, a caption that sent shivers through everyone following the story. This was never just about Meghan. For the first time, the public began to see the bigger picture. The leaks weren't random. They were strategic. Meghan wasn't the target. She was the opening act. Which begs the question, who's next? Because the same day that screenshot went viral, whispers began about another familiar name. Someone inside the royal family whose image had always been considered untouchable. And according to the leaked timeline, their unfiltered truth was scheduled to drop next. But before that story exploded, there was still one more chapter left in Meghan's unraveling, the confrontation. The moment she came face to face with the man who started it all. Or so she thought. Because when Meghan finally tracked down Dr. Keane, what she discovered wasn't closure. It was a revelation so shocking it made every rumor, every headline, every leak look like child's play in comparison. And that meeting, that single encounter, would change the narrative forever. But before we get there, you need to know what she risked to find him, and what he told her that left her shaking. Because that conversation wasn't about beauty anymore. It was about identity, control, and something buried even deeper than vanity. Something that had the power to destroy more than just her image. It could destroy the very idea of who she was. It started with a whisper and ended with a chase. After months of silence, panic, and sleepless nights, Meghan Markle decided she couldn't live in the dark anymore. The videos, the recordings, the rumors, all of it had pushed her to the edge. But there was one person who could answer the question tormenting her. Why? Why now? Why him? Why her? She wanted to look the man in the eye who had dismantled everything she had built, her confidence, her reputation, her identity. Dr. Adrian Keane. The public thought he had vanished for good, hiding somewhere in Europe, protected by encrypted walls and untraceable servers. But the truth, as always, was more complicated. According to private investigators Meghan's team quietly hired, Keane had resurfaced in a coastal town in Oregon, of all places, living under a different name, working under-the-table consultations for wealthy clients who preferred not to be found on paper. When Meghan heard the news, she didn't tell her PR team. She didn't tell Harry. She booked a flight under an alias, reportedly traveling with only one security aide she trusted implicitly. Because this time, she didn't want lawyers or headlines or strategy. She wanted the truth, straight from the man who started it all. Imagine her car pulling up to that small coastal clinic, the fog rolling in from the Pacific, the gray sky hanging low over weathered pine trees, the kind of quiet that makes every sound echo like a confession. Meghan, disguised under a scarf and sunglasses, walked through the door of a building that smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain. And there he was, older, thinner, a man who looked like he'd been carrying secrets heavier than any fame could offer. He didn't seem surprised to see her. He simply looked up from his desk and said, "You found me." According to those close to the situation, the conversation that followed lasted nearly 2 hours, an emotionally charged, tense, and often painful confrontation. There were no cameras, no witnesses, but fragments of that meeting later surfaced in leaked transcripts. She began the way anyone would after being publicly betrayed, with disbelief. "How could you do this?" she reportedly demanded. "You were supposed to protect me. You took an oath." King didn't raise his voice. He didn't deny it. He just leaned back and said quietly, "You think I broke my oath? Maybe I did. But so did you." Those words hung in the air like smoke. "What are you talking about?" she asked. King sighed. "The deal we made. Confidentiality works both ways. You weren't supposed to lie about me, about what we did. You built a career on pretending none of it happened. You erased my work, erased me, and turned it into a fairy tale. I didn't betray you. I exposed the lie we both lived in." For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of waves hitting the cliffs outside filled the silence. This wasn't the answer she came for. She expected guilt, remorse, maybe even a denial. But not this. "You ruined me," she said finally. "I didn't ruin you," Keane replied. "You did that the moment you made perfection your prison." He then opened a drawer, pulled out a small, worn folder, not the infamous one the world had obsessed over, but another. One that he claimed held the truth she didn't want anyone to see. "You think people hate you because of what you changed," he said. "But that's not it. They hate you because you tried to be something no one can be, flawless." And then, the twist that no one saw coming. Keane admitted that he hadn't leaked the photos. Not the first batch. Not the videos. Not even the recordings. Someone else had done it. Someone with access to his encrypted backups. Backups he thought were safe. Someone who knew the timing, the media channels, and Meghan's weaknesses. "Then who?" she whispered. He hesitated. "Someone close to you." Those words hit her like a slap. He didn't say a name. He didn't have to. Meghan's mind began racing through the list of people she trusted, or thought she did. Her former assistant? Her stylist? A friend she'd confided in years ago? Or worse, someone within her current inner circle. Someone feeding her comfort while cutting her image to pieces behind her back. Keane went on. "You weren't the only one. There are others, actresses, models, politicians. They all used aliases, just like you. The same kind of contract. But only your files were leaked. That's not coincidence. That's intent." Meghan demanded to know why he didn't stop it. Why he didn't come forward to clear her name. His answer chilled her. "They warned me. I was told to stay silent or my whole archive would go public. All of it. Every face I ever fixed. Every name. You were the warning shot, Meghan." It's hard to know what she felt in that moment. Anger? Shock? Or maybe something worse. The realization that she was part of something far bigger than herself. That she wasn't the target, just the example. For the first time, she wasn't fighting against gossip. She was standing at the edge of a conspiracy. He handed her a flash drive. "Everything you want to know is here. But I'd think twice before looking. Once you see it, you can't unsee it." She took it, wordlessly, then turned to leave. As she reached the door, he said one last thing, a phrase that would haunt her. "You spent years trying to change your face. Now the world is trying to change your story. That's what happens when you sell your reflection. Someone else buys your truth." Outside, The wind held off the ocean. The sky darkened. She climbed into her car and sat there, shaking. Her hands clutched the flash drive like a ticking bomb. What was on it? More photos? Documents? Or something worse, names? Names that could drag others down with her. Back in Montecito, she reportedly locked herself in her study for hours, staring at her laptop, the drive sitting untouched beside a glass of wine. She must have wondered if knowing the truth would set her free or destroy her completely. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't clear your name, it buries it deeper. Eventually, curiosity won. She plugged it in. The screen flickered. A password prompt appeared, and she hesitated. She didn't have it. That's when she realized something even more disturbing. He never told her the code. Was it a test? A trap? Or a warning? Days later, Meghan's staff said she became erratic, paranoid. She stopped answering calls, dismissed her makeup artist, canceled meetings. She insisted someone was following her. She told one friend she could feel eyes on her even when alone. Whether that was fear or guilt, no one knew. But one thing was certain, the leak wasn't over. Because while she was locked away, debating whether to confront the drive's mystery, another email landed in a journalist's inbox. This one contained only a single sentence. She opened it, and attached a still image. A screenshot of Meghan's laptop screen, the flash drive window open, the file names blurred but visible enough to prove one thing. Someone was still watching her. The leak hadn't ended with the folder, or the photos, or even the recordings. It had evolved. And now, whoever was behind it was no longer exposing her secrets. They were inside her world, documenting her reactions, her fear, her unraveling. The game had changed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about control. Because whoever had orchestrated this wasn't after money or fame. They wanted power. The kind of power that comes from knowing the secrets of the powerful and reminding them who really pulls the strings. That flash drive, that confrontation, that single still image, it all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Meghan wasn't being destroyed by the past. She was being watched in the present. And what came next would prove that whoever started this wasn't done yet. They were just getting started. Before Meghan could even begin to process the confrontation, before she could untangle the truth from the lies that now webbed around her like a tightening net, the storm intensified. She had gone to Oregon expecting closure. Instead, she came back with a flash drive that might as well have been a live grenade. And while she sat in that darkened room in Montecito, paralyzed between curiosity and dread, the rest of the world kept moving. The press didn't slow down. The rumors didn't fade. They evolved. The first sign that something had shifted came from her own house. A staff member, one of the few she still trusted, handed in her resignation overnight. No warning. No explanation. Just a short note. I can't do this anymore. It wasn't the departure itself that scared Meghan. It was what she found in the envelope that came with it. A single printed photo, a still frame from one of the leaked clinic videos. The angle was new, unseen before. Scrawled beneath it in red ink were 3 words, "You're not done." Imagine the feeling. The floor slipping beneath you, the air thick and unbreathable. The certainty that no wall, no gate, no security system could save you. Because the enemy wasn't outside anymore. It was inside. Her team tried to spin the story again. Defamation campaign, they called it. Cyber sabotage by royal sympathizers. The publicists gave statements to friendly outlets, but no one listened. The damage had gone beyond PR. This was personal now, psychological. Because the people who once adored her now wanted something darker, to see how far she'd fall. And fall she did. When she appeared in public a few days later, unannounced, on a quick coffee run, paparazzi caught her looking different. Not worse. Not better. Just real. Exhausted. Pale. Her hair unstyled. The smile gone. The pictures were everywhere within hours. "The Duchess crumbles," one headline read. "Unfiltered at last," said another. Even those who pitied her clicked, watched, commented. That's how public fascination works. Sympathy feeds the same hunger as scorn. Inside the house, tension cracked like thunder. Harry wanted out, at least for a while. He told friends he needed space, that the constant pressure was eating them alive. Meghan refused to leave California. "I can't run again," she reportedly told him. "If I run, they win." But running might have saved her. Because that same night, the flash drive unlocked itself. No one knows how. Some claim a hidden timer embedded in the software. Others believe a remote trigger, the same anonymous hand controlling every leak. Either way, sometime around 3 a.m., her laptop screen flickered awake. The password prompt vanished. The folder opened. Inside were files labeled with dates, initials, and numbers. Hundreds of them. Some marked confidential, others untitled. But one stood out immediately. A file named mirror_protocol. Meghan clicked it. The video that played wasn't what she expected. No surgery, no consultation, no confession. Just Dr. Adrian Keene sitting alone in a dimly lit office, talking directly to the camera. "I don't know who will see this," he began. "But if you're watching, it means it's begun." He looked tired, haunted, his voice steady but resigned. "They think it's about her. It never was. She was a test. A perfect candidate, visible, vain, vulnerable. They wanted to see if it worked." He paused, took a deep breath. You can't change a face without changing the person who wears it. Every alteration rewires identity, memory, emotion. That's what they don't understand. They think they're sculpting beauty. They're creating puppets. Meghan froze. This wasn't medical talk. It was something else. Something philosophical, almost conspiratorial. Keene leaned closer to the camera. Whoever's behind this doesn't care about fame or scandal. They care about control. And they'll use every image, every leak, every truth to prove one thing, that they own the narrative now. The feed cut off abruptly. The file auto-deleted itself from her screen. For a full minute, she didn't move. Her reflection stared back at her from the darkened laptop screen. The very thing this entire nightmare had revolved around. Was Keene telling the truth? Or was he another player in a deeper game? When her aide entered the room hours later, Meghan was still sitting there, whispering something under her breath. They wanted to see if it worked. The next morning, a new wave of leaks hit the press, not just about her, but about others. A famous actress, a political figure, even a distant royal cousin, all tied to the same clinic, all with before and after photos, all funneled through the same encrypted channels. For the first time, the world began to realize that maybe this wasn't just about Meghan's vanity. Maybe she was one of many caught in the same trap. But Meghan's situation was different. Because for her, the leaks weren't just destroying a public image. They were dismantling her sense of self. Every new photo made her question what was real. Did she still look like that? Had she ever looked like that? When she smiled now, did the world see her? Or a fabrication built by someone else's hands? She stopped using mirrors, covered them with scarves, told staff to remove reflective surfaces from her bedroom. She even stopped allowing photos during meetings. "No cameras," she would say, her tone sharp, almost pleading. But the cameras didn't stop. Because a week later, footage appeared online, grainy night vision video of her house exterior, dated just days after the Oregon trip. Someone was watching her, filming her from the darkness outside her gates. This wasn't gossip anymore. It was surveillance. And just as panic reached its peak, a new email landed in her inbox. No sender, no subject line, just a short message. "You opened the mirror. Now it watches back." Attached was a single image, her sitting at her desk, staring at her laptop screen, taken from an angle that no one in the room could have captured. That was the moment she realized she wasn't just being exposed. She was being studied. She smashed the laptop, disconnected the Wi-Fi, pulled the blinds closed. But somewhere deep down, she knew it was too late. Because when the system that controls perception turns against you, there's nowhere left to hide. Meanwhile, news outlets began asking a chilling new question. Who's next? The pattern was clear. Every few days, another high-profile name. Another leak. Another unfiltered truth. Each one followed by online hysteria, public shame, and silence. They didn't need to destroy her. They only needed her to stop believing her own reflection. Because once you stop believing who you are, the world doesn't have to convince anyone else. You've already disappeared. But somewhere, deep within the encrypted servers that started it all, one final file remained unopened. The file that held the name of the person who had orchestrated the leaks from the beginning. And when that name came out, the story would no longer be about beauty, or truth, or control. It would be about revenge. And that revelation was coming soon, closer than anyone expected. It's one thing to face humiliation on the world stage. It's another to realize that humiliation was part of a design. Meghan spent those nights pacing. Sleep was a stranger, Sanity, a fading rumor. The house was too quiet, every shadow too alive. The staff kept their distance. Even the walls seemed to whisper. Every sound, every creak of floorboards, every buzz of her phone felt like a reminder that she was no longer in control of her own life. And then the waiting ended. 3 days after the last leak, a package arrived. No sender name, no postmark, no return address. Just her name scrawled in uneven handwriting across the front. To for your eyes only. Her security team wanted to intercept it, scan it, handle it. She refused. She locked herself in her study and opened it alone. Inside was a plain envelope containing a single USB drive. No logo, no label, just a note on heavy cream paper that read, "You wanted the truth. Here it is." Her heart pounded. It couldn't be the same drive. She had destroyed that one in fear. This was new. And this time, there was no password prompt. The screen came alive as soon as she plugged it in. A video file began playing. A man's voice filled the room. Familiar, smooth, confident. "Hello, Meghan." It wasn't keen. It was colder, sharper, almost amused. "You've been asking who's behind this. You've been looking in the wrong direction." The camera slowly panned over a wall of photographs. Images of her from every era. Teenage years, acting auditions, royal appearances, paparazzi shots. All connected with red strings, like an investigation board. At first, the voice continued. "You were just a subject. A case study in narrative construction. But you became something more. You became the perfect test." Meghan leaned closer to the screen. "What test?" she whispered. "The test of belief," the voice said. "We wanted to know how much truth a world obsessed with illusion could handle before it turned on itself. You were the experiment. Your story was the bait." Her hands shook. This wasn't a threat. It was a manifesto. The man's voice went on, calm and deliberate. "The leaks weren't meant to destroy you. They were meant to expose them, the audience, the consumers of perfection, the ones who demand flawlessness and then crucify those who chase it. You were simply the mirror they needed." It was madness, yet it made an eerie kind of sense. Every leak, every headline, every frenzy had played out exactly as predicted. The video cut to footage of data analytics, graphs, heat maps of online activity. "We tracked it all," the voice said. Engagement, outrage, fascination. Within hours, millions turned on you. Within days, they turn on each other. That's the point. The reflection always consumes itself. Her stomach turned. Whoever made this wasn't just watching her. They were orchestrating chaos, studying human reaction as if it were a lab experiment. Then came the final blow. The screen went black, and new text appeared. "We never needed to hack your world, Meghan. You gave us access. You filmed everything. Every call, every meeting, every confession. Your obsession with image gave us the keys." She froze. Could that be true? Had the devices she used for years, her phones, her security cameras, even her own documentary crew, been recording more than she realized? And then a still image appeared. It was a shot of her sitting across from Dr. Keene during their meeting in Oregon. The same meeting she thought was private. The image came from a hidden angle, behind her shoulder. The voice spoke one last time. "You thought you came to confront him. In reality, he was part of your script. We wrote this ending long before you arrived. You just played your role." The feed ended. She sat there, staring at the frozen screen, her mind blank. If this was true, then she wasn't the victim of betrayal. She was the product of it. A living experiment in manipulation. And outside, the world kept watching. Because even as she sat alone in that silent room, new leaks began appearing. This time not on gossip sites, but on official media platforms. Outlets that had once supported her now published exclusive data, allegedly tying the leaks to a global PR syndicate, a network of tech and media consultants who use celebrity identities to test algorithmic manipulation. The names that surfaced were shocking. Executives, influencers, royal-adjacent figures. Even individuals once seen as her allies. Each accused of knowing about the operation, or at least benefiting from it. And just like that, the narrative flipped. Meghan wasn't just a scandal anymore. She was Exhibit A in a modern psychological experiment that spiraled out of control. But for her, the twist didn't feel redemptive. It felt hollow, because no amount of truth could undo what had already been done. Her reputation was a graveyard of half-truths and deleted posts. Harry returned from London days later to find her pale, withdrawn, muttering about the mirror. She handed him the drive, told him to destroy it. Instead, he gave it to a lawyer. The lawyer handed it to authorities. Within hours, the story leaked again. Even in trying to escape, she fed the machine. Soon analysts and conspiracy theorists alike began debating what Mirror Protocol really was. Some called it an underground marketing experiment. Others said it was part of a digital blackmail network that controlled celebrity narratives. A few believed it was a coordinated royal operation designed to discredit her forever. No one agreed, but everyone talked, and every word kept her trapped. She tried to disappear, deleted social media, moved between rented houses under pseudonyms. But every time she resurfaced, a new piece of the puzzle appeared. Another recording, another secret, another proof that she would never outrun the story. One night, she met with an investigative reporter who claimed to have found the voice behind the manifesto. He handed her a folder. Inside was a single image, the silhouette of a man walking into a broadcast studio in London. "Who is he?" she asked. The reporter looked at her and said, "You'll know when you hear him speak." The next morning, Meghan turned on the television. The anchor's voice echoed across the room. Calm, British, authoritative, the same tone she'd heard in the recording. The broadcast wasn't about her. It was about technology, privacy, and control. The man behind the desk smiled as he discussed the dangers of media manipulation in the digital age. The name on the Chiron, Lord H., one of the royal family's trusted media advisors. The realization hit her like a punch. It hadn't just been an experiment. It had been revenge, cloaked in intellectualism, executed with precision, and disguised as a cautionary tale. She was never meant to survive it. She was meant to illustrate it. And as she sat in silence, staring at that screen, one final message appeared on her phone. End of test. Thank you for your participation. The phone went dark. She looked at her reflection in the black glass. The woman who looked back was unrecognizable, neither duchess nor actress, neither victim nor villain, just a face stripped of illusion. And somewhere, across the ocean, the man who started it all smiled into the camera as millions watched, unaware that the experiment was still running, and they were the next subjects.